Hello and welcome to the chesscreator.com YouTube video channel. In today's video I'd like to continue with my series on the London system opening. In the first video I went through some of the basic themes and explained that it's a flexible opening system with opportunities for kingside and queenside play. In addition, I went through the basic opening moves and explained that these can be made in many different move orders. As this is a system, it's impossible to go through every single line and every single theme in a single YouTube video. So, in the course of the next few videos, I'm going to pick illustrative games which feature one or two critical themes. The analysis of these will be relatively light and will be focusing on pattern recognition, piece placement and general themes, as opposed to hundreds of pages of variations. So, in the first of these games I've chosen none other than chess legend Garry Kasparov, playing white and playing the London system. The first few moves unfolded as follows: d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, and here black gives us an indication that they're going into some kind of King's Indian or Grunfeld opening. Kasparov continues with bishop f4, and the two themes I really want to focus on in this video are the role of the dark square bishop, which we'll refer to as the London bishop. If you watch the first video, you'll note that very often white plays an h3, retreats the bishop and maintains it on h2. We'll see this in this game. Continuing, bishop g7, e3. Once again, opening scope for the light square bishop. Against King's Indian and fianchetto setups, white usually places the light square bishop on e2 instead of d3. This game continues. Black castled, bishop e2, d6, castles, knight d7 and h3. Kasparov here is assuming that black will play knight h5 at some point, or perhaps e5, and he wishes to maintain the bishop on this dark square diagonal between h2 and b8. Game continues, queen e8, and this signals that black is really looking to play e5 to strike at the centre. Here Kasparov chooses to play c4 instead of c3, signalling that he's intending to play on the king side as well as the queen side. A common feature of the London system is to push queenside pawns and really create space on the queen side. e5, and Kasparov here simply retreats the bishop to h2. At the moment this diagonal is full of black pawns, but as we'll see, even though it looks that it's out of the game at the moment, this bishop really does influence the game as it progresses. Knight e4, knight bd2, and here black decides to simplify. Queen e7, and Kasparov begins to centralize his rooks. e4, and here we see the beginning of Kasparov's change of attention from the king side to the queen side, beginning with rerouting the knight to knight e1. Black responds with knight f6, and Kasparov centralises his other knight, preparing for a queenside pawn push. Rook d8, b4, d5, and b5. Knight e8, perhaps preparing for the thematic f5 push in King's Indian type formations. a5, and black develops its last minor piece to a slightly awkward looking square, e6. And here Kasparov just chooses to continue to push the pawns. At this point we can see that the bishop on h2 is now operating on a lovely diagonal pointing all the way down to c7 and b8. And despite the fact it hasn't moved, its influence is getting stronger and stronger as we move towards the end of the middle game. Rook c8, knight c2, Kasparov's repositioning some of his minor pieces to support the queenside push. h5. At this point, black is looking for some kind of counterplay. One feature of the London system, as well as being very flexible in terms of offering simple to understand kingside and queenside plans, it also minimises counterplay from black. Many players hate playing against the London system for that very reason. So this game continued, knight bd4, queen g5, and here black has its first counterplay, threatening to take the pawn on h3 with the queen pin on the g2 pawn. So here we see that the bishop on h2 can operate as a defensive piece as well as a positional attacker in terms of influencing this diagonal. And here Kasparov simply pushes the queen away with bishop f4. Black retreats the bishop to d8, and Kasparov continues to push his pawns. g5, bishop h2. Once again the bishop returns to its h2 position, still influencing this diagonal. h4, a6, b6, c takes b6, black recaptures, pair of rooks come off, and here Kasparov plays a lovely move. And we can start to see here a very nice coordination between knight and bishop. They're both pointing on the b8 square, and they coordinate in a very nice way to really put black under an awful lot of pressure. So how does black defend the pawn? Queen d7, something of an unfortunate move to have to make. Rook c1, building up pressure again on the c-file. f6, knight bd8, again coordinating with the bishop on h2. Queen d8, another pair of rooks come off. Knight c6, harassing this pawn once again. Queen comes back to defend the pawn on a7, and here we get a lovely combination of knight and bishop, and the bishop goes from a defensive role and a strategic positional role to an attacking role. Bishop b8, ganging up on the poor a7 pawn. Let me just engine check this position. Houdini's giving this almost 4 points advantage. Yep, 4 points advantage to white here. Once again, black has almost no counterplay, and here black goes hell for leather and tries a last bid for an attack. Let me just rewind that. So here black rolls the dice one last time. But there really is no attack to speak of. It's just the black queen by itself. And so queen d1 calmly defends the position. Black retreats the queen. And now white changes their focus from the queen side to the king side. Here black plays f5, which is a blunder. The bishop can be captured because if queen were to recapture, white could then fork the king and queen. And after 2 more moves, Kasparov played queen g4, and at this point black has pressure on both sides of the board. There is no way to protect the pawn on a7, and white is coming crashing in on the king side as well. At this point, Houdini is giving the advantage to white of around 12 points, and at this point Kasparov's opponent resigns. So, what did we learn from this game? Well, the first thing we learned is that the London bishop, although it's on an unusual diagonal in terms of h2 to b8, it can have an awful lot of influence in the game. We've also learned that despite there being a misconception of the London system not being used by anyone of note, if it's been used by someone like Garry Kasparov, albeit in a simultaneous, but it was used by Kasparov nonetheless, hopefully that gives some credibility to the opening itself. And also I hope you saw the flexibility in terms of the attention and the attack and the pieces moving from king side onto queen side, with the pawns pushing forward as follows, seeing the defensive and attacking capabilities of the bishop, the London bishop on the dark diagonal, and also towards the end how the resources were moved back from the queen side to the king side. So I hope that's been a useful introduction into 2 of the key concepts, those being the role of the London bishop on f4 and on the associated diagonal, and also the importance of the queen side pawn push. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them for me on YouTube. If you enjoyed the video or you found it useful, please consider subscribing. It's free and you'll be notified of future videos. Thanks again for your time, and I'll talk to you again soon.